I appreciate what Tom said, and the thing is like what Tom said. He said, in his prayer was, bless Van as he comes to share his heart. And my heart is not that I would come and share my heart. My heart is that I would come and share the Father's heart. And so this week, as I've been kind of preparing and thinking and stuff, I was brought back to the beginning, Genesis. And God, in his creation, his desire for community, for preparing a place for mankind, a paradise. And so, he just prepared everything for us. And so Adam and Eve come onto the scene. And this is in Genesis chapter 3. If you want to, you probably remember the story, or if you want to turn there, you can. I won't be looking there much, but in Genesis chapter 3, Adam and Eve, up to this point, have experienced nothing except the goodness of God. I mean, can you imagine? They're just walking around going, hey, how's it going? Good. How's your day? Good. They have no other thing that they're experiencing in their life right now except the goodness of God. They'd come and they'd hang out with God. God would come and hang out with them. God would come and check in with them. How you doing? Good. Really good. And then this serpent comes in. And he says, hey, you know what you need? You need a little bit of evil. You need a little bit of evil in your life. Now, understand, up to this point, what are they experiencing? Nothing but the goodness of God. And so, and in all of that goodness, the only thing they have is just one rule. One rule. All the goodness of God, and just one rule. And that serpent comes in and says, hey, you know what you need? You need a little bit of evil. You know why you have that rule? Because God's afraid. He's afraid that if you break that rule, you're going to be like him. You're going to be just like him. So that's why he put up the rule. What's the truth? What's the truth? Why did God establish that rule?
Protection.
So that we could have a ruler. So that Adam and Eve could have a ruler. And this ruler has nothing but goodness to give to those that are there with him. And so he establishes this rule simply for the fact that they can rule and they can reign in his goodness. But that serpent, that dirty serpent, that little evil liar, comes in and says, hey, you just need a little bit of evil. And once you get that, you're going to be just like God. You're going to be just like the Father. Just like him. And so God lays it all out for us. He lays it all out for Adam and Eve. Everything is beautiful. Everything is wonderful. Everything is paradise. They're experiencing nothing but the goodness of God, and they have that one rule, and that one rule establishes the fact that they have a ruler. Religious oppression. Right? Isn't that what it is? Religious oppression. One rule. That's all they got. And all the goodness of God. And my granddaughter Eloise, we've been moving. Our living room has been like kid central, and we finally got one of the bedrooms cleaned out. And Tom came over. He's seen it. I did some painting. I put in new wood floors, and we got all this beautiful. Everything's white, and she's got this wonderful play area in there now. And we're gradually migrating. We took down the cage that goes around the fireplace and the computer printer. We took, we're moving toys from there into the room, and we're deciding what do we keep, what do we get rid of. And in the middle of all that, just off to the edge of where her little play area is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, there's a printer, my computer printer. And it has buttons on it. And it has a little screen, just like an iPhone or an iPad or something, right? And so she can push the buttons. And I keep telling her, Eloise, no, don't touch. And she started doing this thing lately where she says, stop it. And I'm like, do I say that? Is that where she learned that? Stop it. But it just reminded me of this, the fact that, hey, you've got all of this space. You've got your own room full of toys. You've got all of this space still in the middle of my living room with all of these toys. And you got one rule. Don't touch the printer. And what does she want to do?
Touch the printer.
Touch the printer. That's right. You know? And so all the goodness of God. And all of a sudden the serpent comes in and says, hey, you just need a little bit of evil. And gets them to thinking about it. God's afraid if you break his rule, you're going to be like him. You're going to know. You're going to know the difference between good and evil. Here's the thing. They were already like God. They were created in his image. They had everything that they needed. They had a ruler who ruled in nothing but goodness. Let's get that little taste of that evil, though. That's what the serpent wants. So at this point, Adam has a choice. He has a choice. We all have to make a choice. There's a point in our lives, probably daily, right? Isn't there a daily, there's this confrontation that's happening on a daily basis where I have to make a choice. Do I choose good or evil? Right? And so everything comes up to this point, and Adam eats. And his whole life has changed. His whole life has changed. All of a sudden, in an instant, the death has come over on his spirit. And all of a sudden, he realizes, I'm afraid. There's not been one time, not one time in Adam's life that he would need to be afraid of the Father. And all of a sudden, he's afraid. And he's naked. He just realizes it. And he's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I'm naked. And God comes in, the Father comes in and says, Adam, where are you? Adam's hiding. He's hiding because he's afraid. He's hiding because he's naked. Adam, where are you? You know, if God can't find you, you're really lost. You're really lost if God can't find you. And so Adam comes out and he says, Here I am. I'm naked. And God's like, who told you you were naked? Who told you? Now, I don't know about you guys. I like to be naked just as much as anybody else. I mean, isn't that the definition of paradise? I mean, running around with your girl in the Garden of Eden all day long, all night long, just naked. I mean, that's the original creation. That's the way God created us. Yeah. You're like, right now you're like, no, because you're not looking through the right eyes.
New mirror.
But that, you know, but so there's Adam. Who told you you were naked? Now, and I don't know about you. It's not like I jumped in my car this morning and just realized on the way to the ferry, it's like, oh, I'm naked. You know, I know when I'm naked. You know, there's never a time that I don't know that I'm naked, right? But God says, the Father says, who told you? Who told you you were naked? Who told you? Adam. And God realizes, Adam, you broke the rule, didn't you? You broke the rule. You broke my rulership, and now you have a new ruler. You didn't become more like me, you became more like him. You committed adultery. You switched governments. You became more like the serpent. You've got a new governor. And your eyes see everything through him. Adam, you had my eyes before. You had my eyes before. And all you had was goodness. And now you have the eyes of your new ruler. And when the serpent looks at me, he's afraid. And Adam, that's why you're afraid. You've switched camps. And now you see through the eyes of your new ruler. Why? Because you wanted to make the rules. You had one rule. You had one rule so that you had a ruler, and his rule was nothing but goodness. But you wanted to be God, and now you are a slave. You'll be oppressed by a ruler who hates you. But that woman that you gave me, Adam's the first victim. Not only he's blaming his wife, he's blaming his God. You know? How many people in the world have walked away from God? And they blame it on him. It's all your fault. If you hadn't created all these rules, just one rule, Adam. Just one. You have all of my goodness. Everything that you need to live in paradise. One rule establishes that I am your ruler, and you break that rule. So now you are going to be oppressed and ruled and treated as a slave. That's what you got. That's what you chose. That is true love, by the way. That God would allow Adam to make that choice. Because love without a choice is not love at all. And God proved that when he sent his son. I wonder what would have happened. What would have happened if God came and said, Adam, you broke that rule. You broke the rule. And Adam said, yes, I did. I did it. I did. I am so sorry. I just had a moment, a lapse. I understand all your goodness, God. I love all your goodness. I know the rule. I broke the rule. I'm so sorry. Would you please forgive me? What would our lives be like then if Adam had done that? We'll never know. And here we sit in our clothes. The whole purpose, the goal of the serpent was to pervert our perspective of the Father. That's all he wanted to do. Just create chaos. And from that time throughout all of human history, everyone has been trained to see the Father through the serpent's eyes. Every government, every economy, every civilization views the Father through the eyes of the serpent. Jesus is standing before a group of people, God's people, and he looks at him and he says, if you knew me, you know the Father. Which is another way of saying, if you knew the Father, you know me. But no, your father is the serpent. He's talking to Pharisees. He's talking to the religious people of the time. And you don't know me because you don't know the Father. So they bring to him a woman caught in adultery, red-handed. Now, it's kind of interesting that, as far as I understand, it takes two to do this act, but they only brought her. So they bring her, they throw him at his feet, and here's the test. Here's your chance, Jesus. Throw the book at her. She has committed adultery. And under the law, she can be killed, stoned to death. Stoned to death. So Jesus pauses, bends down, writes something in the sand, the dirt there. There's probably been hundreds of sermons taught, preached about what he wrote. We don't know. And then he looks up and he says, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone." And the oldest person there walks away. Why? I wonder why they pointed that out. Because that person has more time under his belt and more sin. Right? Tom's 62 today. I mean, he's got more sin in his life than me. I'm only 54. Yeah. You who are without sin, cast the first stone. And one by one, they all walked away, leaving her there, laying on the ground, weeping, crying, fearful that she's going to be killed. But they're going to throw rocks at her and kill her. And Jesus stops and looks at her and says, "Where are those who have condemned you?" And she looks up and they're gone. The only one who was qualified to cast that first stone was Jesus, the sinless one. And he looks at her and he says, "Where are they?" And they're like, "They're gone." And he says, "Neither do I condemn you." And then he takes the opportunity to just lay into her. I mean, he gave her the riot act up and down. No, what did he do? He said, "Hey, don't do that anymore." Religious oppression. Right? I mean, how do you serve justice by doing just don't do that no more? Because that's what we want, right? We got to see justice done. We have to see it. What is Jesus' purpose in coming to reveal the Father's heart? He's giving us a glimpse of what it is to look at somebody else through the eyes of the Father, his Father. There's another story about a father, although the son gets all the credit, the prodigal son, but the real story is not about the son at all. It's about the Father. How the son comes and basically says, "Hey, I wish you were dead. I wish you were dead. Would you just give me my inheritance right now?" And, he does. He just gives it to him. None of us here would have done that. Right? It's like, no, you would have took this book right here and you would have said, "You disrespectful little rat." Slapped him upside the head with it. But no, the Father says, "Okay. I've everything that I've accumulated, I tried to come together so that you would have a good life in my absence." And that disrespectful son comes and says, basically, he says, "I wish you were dead. I want my inheritance now." And he gives it to him. And he does exactly what the Father thinks he's going to go do. He blows it. He blows it. But in the meantime, as the son is out there reaping his reward, the Father is anxiously waiting. He's standing at the doorpost. He's looking out across the field, down the road, anxiously anticipating the return of his son. And when he sees him off in the distance, he takes off running after him. Dwayne, when's the last time you ran? We probably wouldn't.
That's a personal question.
Yes, yeah, that's a personal question. Seeing older people run, it's not. But he runs. He doesn't care what other people think. He sees his son off in the distance. He can't even understand. He doesn't know the condition of him. I mean, this guy might be coming back with a tenfold. He made all this extra money. No, but he gets to him and he sees him and he's a wreck. And he stops short, and he says, "I told you." No, he didn't do that. No, he ran headlong and he grabbed that son and he put his lips right on his neck. And you know the rest of the story. Kill the fatted calf, have a party. None of us would have responded that way. That story is a reflection, is to teach us how the Father sees us and how we are to see others. The problem with both of these stories, right? This is in the New Testament, the Bible, the book that Jesus didn't have. It's in there, and all of this occurred prior to the cross. All this occurred before the cross. There's no application of the blood of Christ for the forgiveness of sins applied in either one of these stories. I can imagine all these people are looking around, and Jesus is there with the woman, and you got the story of the prodigal son, the great father, and all these people are hearing these things, they're seeing these things, and they're going, "Jesus, you're not following the rules. This is not how it's supposed to go." And Jesus is saying, that's because you're looking at this from the wrong perspective. You're looking at it from your Father's eyes. And if you knew me, you know my Father. And if you knew my Father, you'd be doing the same thing that I'm doing. Whose eyes are we looking through? Tom, that's the title, by the way. Whose eyes are we looking through? They're going to know us by what? Our love. They're going to know us by our love. And Jesus is showing us the Father's heart. That's what he's showing us. You have been trained by your father, the devil, who is a liar from the very beginning. We have to make sure that we're looking through the right eyes. There's a word, a Greek word, sozo. It means to live a life of wholeness. That every part of your being, your mind, your body, your spirit is completely at peace. The shalom of heaven is just reigning and ruling in your life. And so when you look at people, and when we look at our circumstances, and when we look at the Father, we desire to be looking through the eyes of Jesus. The alternative is what the serpent has created and was designed to move us farther and farther and farther away from the Father's heart. Jesus is the way. Jesus is the truth. Jesus is the life. The new covenant believer has a choice. See, that's what they were living in. They were living under the old covenant. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the religious people, when Jesus came onto the scene, they were living under the old covenant. And now we have a new covenant. Remember, Jesus established that when he was talking about break this bread, it's my body broken for you. Drink this wine. This is the new covenant. This is what he's talking about. When you take in my body, when you take in my blood, it changes your DNA. It changes everything about you, and it gives you a different perspective on life. And it makes you realize there's more than this life. There's an eternal life. And we're not living for this life alone. We're living for our lives for eternity. And so this new covenant believer, that's us. We have a choice. And it's all about connection. Remember we talked about a couple weeks ago that Jesus, he's the vine. And we need to get connected to the source of all of this. And God the Father, he so lovingly nurtures us. He comes in close to us and trims away all of those branches that aren't bearing fruit. They're not bearing good fruit. They're not bearing much fruit. And so we have this choice. And the choice is all about connection. So under this new covenant, it's this connection to the Spirit, it's a connection to the Son, to Jesus, and it's a connection to the Father. And it's through those eyes. It's through those eyes that I look at you. It's through those eyes that I look at my circumstances. It's through those eyes that I look at the things that are happening around the world today. And I can get all upset and turned upside down and twist it all up, or I can look at it the way that the Father looks at these things, and he says, he just grieves. He grieves for all the people who are still looking through the serpent's eyes. Can you just feel the Father's heart in that? I'm reluctant to say this, but I saw a car, and it said, had the Black Lives Matter sign on it. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But then right below it says, "Save the children." And I'm like, I wonder if those people, I think their heart's probably good, towards people who are struggling, people who have not had it as good as other people. I think their heart is good in that way. Do they realize that there's an organization that is oppressing people and they're killing babies? And they're saying, "Save the children." Come on, they need to know. They need to know the truth. How are we going to get the truth to them? How? We have to demonstrate the love of the Father. We have to demonstrate. We have to use those God goggles. Tammy just mentioned that this morning. We have to get God goggles on and see the world through his eyes and grieve when we see the loss. It's through those eyes that I look. And so, whenever Jesus was confronted with the religious people, and it came down to this, they said, "What's the greatest commandment?" What's the greatest commandment? Because we want to know, we want that one so that we can beat the crap out of each other with it. Right? Oh, is it okay to say that? I mean, because that's what it is, right? I mean, we are Christians. We are religious. And I'm just going to beat you up with this one commandment. So Jesus, I need that commandment and I need it right now. I want to know what it is. All the way back in Genesis, the goodness of God, one rule. One rule. The new covenant, Jesus comes in and says, love. I'm going to give you a second one. Love. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you one more. Love. Can I do that with 3 fingers? Love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as you love yourself. All we get is love. Thank you. The Beatles stole that from Jesus. Love, love, love. Amen.